As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the village, Amara found herself standing at the edge of her simple home, where the laughter of children echoed like a distant melody. Tunde's laughter, pure and innocent, still lingered in her mind, a haunting reminder of what she had chosen to leave behind. In the bustling days that followed her marriage, moments of joy from her past crept into her heart, like shadows in the twilight. With each lavish feast and extravagant gift that adorned her new life, Amara felt a pang of emptiness, as if a part of her soul remained tethered to the modest hut and vibrant fields that had shaped her. Her once vibrant village life now felt like a distant dream, overshadowed by opulence she had not fully embraced. The silks and jewels adorning her were exquisite, yet they dragged on her with each passing day, a constant reminder of Tunde's absence. She often found herself gazing out the window of her opulent new home, longing for the fields where she and Tunde had spent countless afternoons, collecting wildflowers and chasing butterflies. Each day, the sun would rise, and with it came the faces of her new family, polished yet hollow, laughing and dancing in a manner that felt alien. There was a symphony of voices that filled the halls now, yet Amara found herself detached, a ghost walking among the living. The conversations revolved around wealth and status, and while her new husband, the Honorable Mr. Osei, endeavored to include her in discussions of business and family legacy, her heart drifted away from it all. In private moments, she would sometimes catch him looking at her, concern etched on his face as if he could sense a part of her was perpetually lost. In her newfound position, societal expectations loomed larger than ever. Occasionally, whispers reached her ears, speculations of how a mother could so easily abandon her child for a life of luxury. Some praised her as a wise woman, but others cast judgmental glances, suggesting that wealth could never replace the love of a mother. Amara felt the weight of their glances, sharp and unyielding. In the solace of her room, the guilt absorbed her. Memories of Tunde's tiny hands clutching hers, and the sweet sound of his voice calling out for her played like a bittersweet melody. At night, she would close her eyes tightly, willing herself to forget. Still, the images would flood her mind. Tunde's bright eyes, filled with innocent joy, the way he would dance in the dirt after the rain. Each memory was both a comfort and an aching wound, a reminder of her sacrifice. She recalled the evening Tunde had begged her not to go, his eyes full of confusion, yet Amara had assured him with a weak smile that she would always be near. But she was not near. She was here, among golden trappings, bound by a promise that felt heavier with every passing day. The struggle within her grew. For now, more than ever, she questioned if wealth was truly worth the toll her heart had taken. Amara found herself caught in a whirlwind of emotions, oscillating between the intoxicating allure of Cheek's promises and the heavy weight of her responsibilities as a mother. Each time they met, the air crackled with the tension of both aspiration and uncertainty. Cheek's laughter echoed like music in her ears, but it was a sweet melody tainted with dissonance. She could easily envision the life he spoke of, a life where her son would not just survive but thrive, surrounded by the best that prosperity could offer. Yet, in her heart, a whisper of doubt lingered. Could she truly trade the simplicity of love for the complexity of wealth? As they strolled through the vibrant village markets, Chiki pointed out the advantages of his affluent lifestyle. You see, Amara, success is not merely about the possessions we acquire, he explained with a confidence that enthralled her. It's about the freedom to create opportunities, to provide for those we love. His words wrapped around her like silk, luxurious and heavy. The colorful stalls brimming with fresh produce and handmade crafts felt like a stark contrast to the drabness of her current existence, and she could almost taste the fruits of Chika's world, ripe, sweet, and endlessly delightful. But as the sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and lavender, Amara's thoughts drifted to her son, Tunda. His laughter, innocent and pure, rang in her ears, tethering her to the life she knew. Memories flooded back, tucking him into bed, the stories she spun to ignite his imagination, and the way his tiny fingers squeezed her hand, grounding her in the moment. Those fleeting yet vivid recollections were like grains of sand slipping through her fingers as she stood at a precipice, peering into an unknown future. The dreams Chiki offered shimmered like a mirage, exquisite yet elusive. Days turned into weeks, and the walls of her heart began to shift, and the idea of a more affluent life became a siren song that pulled her closer to Chike. He poured his charm over her, weaving a tapestry of dreams adorned with promises of travel, fine dining, and the luxuries that came with power. Each evening, as they shared stories under the twinkling stars, Amara felt the tinges of hope awaken within her, a hope that perhaps she could offer Tunda a life untouched by the struggles of their daily existence. Yet, guilt gnawed at her, and as Chike reached for her hand, she recoiled, torn between desire and responsibility. Amara's village thrummed with anticipation, whispering tales of triumph and romance, and as she stepped deeper into the web Chike wove, she felt the pressure of their expectations mounting. What would it mean to accept his love, to abandon the life she knew? The village's adulation felt both exhilarating and suffocating, and each visit with Chiki became a battle, a tug-of-war between the life of a mother and the tempting offer of a future steeped in wealth. And in the depths of her soul, a question loomed large. Could she forsake all her memories for a golden future that shimmered yet felt so distant? Amara stood at the edge of the village, her heart a tumultuous sea of uncertainty and sorrow. The sun's last rays painted the sky a brilliant orange, a stark contrast to the heavy cloud of doubt gathering in her mind. This was the eve of a new beginning, yet every fiber of her being felt weighted by the impending choices that loomed like storm clouds on the horizon. She could hear the distant sounds of laughter and music, the collective joy of villagers preparing for her wedding, unaware of the turmoil raging within their bride. Tunda's laughter echoed in her ears, innocent and pure, a poignant reminder of the bond they shared. As she focused on the sounds of the celebration, each cheer felt like an incursion into her thoughts. What was it about ambition that made her feel so disloyal? The dream of a life dripping in luxury beckoned, like a siren call, promising security and opportunity. Yet it felt like a betrayal to her son. The very idea of leaving Tunda behind twisted her heart into knots, wrapping it in an unbearable grief that threatened to spill over. Sitting on the rough-hewn log, Amara watched as the sun dismantled itself, piece by piece, until only a faint orange glow lingered. She remembered the first time she held Tunde in her arms, how his cries melted her heart and filled her with an overwhelming sense of purpose. Now that purpose felt murky, shrouded in her conflicted desires. Would this decision to leave provide him with the life she had always envisioned for him? Or would it shatter the very foundation of their relationship? With each passing moment, the clarity she sought became agonizingly elusive. She envisioned Tunda, small and trusting, reaching for her as she slipped away. His innocent gaze would hold her accountable, would drill into her the depth of her choice and lay bare the divide between ambition and maternal instinct. The very thought of his stunned silence, a memory she would carry like a wound, gripped her heart. Wiping away the tears that streamed down her face, she forced her thoughts to consider the grandmother's warm embrace that awaited him. The thought of Tunde being nurtured by a woman whose love for him surpassed time itself brought a flicker of comfort. Yet, self-reassurance faltered when she acknowledged the truth. How could she escape the voice in her head that insisted leaving him, even for a while, was a selfish act? A harrowing internal battle brewed, with every argument for her ambition accruing guilt as its currency. As twilight settled over the village, Amara made her choice, a harrowing decision shrouded in the hope of a brighter future. Tears flowed freely now, mourning the loss of what would never be. She envisioned herself walking down the aisle tomorrow in sparkling white, a facade of joy as the villagers cheered for the new life she was claiming. But deep down, she would carry a heaviness that no wedding dress could conceal. The joy of motherhood felt like grains of sand slipping through her fingers, irrevocably lost in the tides of her dreams. The cost of ambition. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of crimson and gold, Amara found herself surrounded by a whirlwind of laughter and conversations that felt increasingly hollow. Cheek's latest soiree had attracted the city's elite, rich, powerful, and glamorous. Twinkling chandeliers cast a soft glow over the lavish spread of delicacies, each more decadent than the last. She smiled, expertly adhering to the role expected of her, the perfect hostess, gracefully gliding from one conversation to the next. Yet her heart was miles away, nestled in the innocence and warmth of home. Each time her phone vibrated on the marble counter, a sense of foreboding curled around her heart. It became a torturous cycle. The texts were often from family, updates on Tunde that were achingly mundane yet heavy with meaning. "Tunde has taken to fishing with the neighbors," one message read. "He seems to be growing taller by the week." It was in those small details that Amara felt the chasm widening between her and her son. What she wouldn't give to feel the warmth of his small hands pulling at her skirts, begging for yet another bedtime story that she could no longer tell. The sounds of delighted attendees around her began to dissolve, fading into a haunting melody of laughter that felt foreign as her thoughts spiraled back to Tunde, left behind in a village that moved forward without her. She could sense the whispers in the community back home, the judgment that cloaked her decisions like a heavy shroud. The abandoned boy. Those words rang like a bell in her mind, echoing with the suffocating guilt that clung to her. Rumors had a life of their own, and Amara feared they had transformed her son's life into a cautionary tale. Conversations with Chiki, once filled with dreams and plans, felt futile when juxtaposed with the reality of Tunde's loneliness. What good were grand plans for an opulent lifestyle if her child was suffering? Amara's morning coffee had become a bitter brew of compromise and conflict, the rich aroma only intensifying her internal turmoil. Cheek often spoke of their future, painting a picture of shared goals, travel, and wealth. Yet, the more he emphasized the importance of ambition, the more suffocating it felt. Each promise he made felt less like a commitment and more like a distraction from the child who needed her. Amara longed for the simple joy of watching Tunde kick a ball around with friends, of playing hide-and-seek until twilight wrapped them in shadow, of being his everything, rather than a distant echo in the village. The additional opulence around her began to blend into mere background noise. The glitz no longer sparkled, but instead dulled beneath the weight of her yearning for home. As she stood amidst the laughter and merriment, a shadow of her former self, Amara began to question whether the shimmering facade of wealth was worth the profound emptiness that echoed within her heart. The cost of ambition, now threatening to claim more than just her time, it was threatening to claim her very essence. As Amara navigated the glimmering halls of power and prestige, the once unwavering foundations of her life began to tremble beneath the weight of her choices. The echoes of laughter she once shared with Tunde faded into distant memories, replaced by the vacuum of silence that loomed in the expansive mansion. The trappings of wealth, once a source of joy and inspiration, became a reminder of what she had sacrificed in her relentless pursuit of a life that glittered far beyond her reality. Cheek, the man who had once enveloped Amara in the warmth of his charm, had morphed into a specter of possessiveness. Each compliment that once sparked joy now felt laced with control, suffocating her spirit in subtle yet profound ways. She could barely recognize the man who had swept her off her feet with tales of ambition and shared dreams. Instead, confronted by jealousy and microaggressions, Amara found herself walking on the tightrope of his expectations, her heart heavy with the burden of repressed desires. During countless social events, gleaming soirees filled with the rich and powerful, Amara felt increasingly alien in her own skin. The laughter of the elite, laced with thinly veiled competition, became a haunting reminder of what true connection was. As she plastered on a smile, the warmth of her village felt like a soft, fading whisper in her memories. They had cheered for her successes, relishing in the rich tapestry of life shared among them. Yet now, they felt a world away. Amara's dreams had escalated into a relentless pursuit, tearing her from the very essence of the woman she had aspired to be. In her heart, she sensed a shift, a longing for the simple moments that grounded her amid the whirlwind of affluence. She recalled Tunde's bright-eyed wonder and the sound of his laughter, the way they had once explored the world together, hand in hand. Yet now, Tunde was trapped in the shadows of her choices. The vibrant boy who bounced with joy was slowly giving way to a somber reflection, carried by the weight of isolation. The calls, once punctuated with excitement over a new adventure or a shared secret, had given way to muted conversations, missing the spark they once ignited. Amara's heart ached with the realization that Tunde was slipping away, a ghost in the very home meant to nurture his dreams. She had thought success would elevate them both, yet it had only drawn out a chasm, widening with each passing day. She found herself caught in a relentless cycle, striving for status while neglecting the bond that had once knitted their souls together. Her ambition, a fierce companion, now stood accused of driving them apart, forcing her to face the difficult truth that success came at a price that was too steep for the love of a mother. In the quiet moments late at night, after the parties ended and the laughter subsided, Amara felt the weight of her choices echo through the hollow chambers of her heart. The life she had once glorified now felt like an intricate tapestry unraveling, threads fraying and pulling away from the stunning image she had crafted. In the silence, she was confronted with the very real and painful question: had she traded her son for shadows? As Amara stepped into the village, a whirlwind of sensations engulfed her. The familiar sights, the sun-bleached huts, the tall, swaying palm trees, the laughter of children echoing alongside the river, pulled at her heartstrings. Yet the stares of the villagers felt like a heavy shroud, wrapping around her with a suffocating embrace. Each glance seemed to hold a question, an unspoken reproach, a gentle reminder of time lost and ties frayed. She brushed her hands down the fabric of her dress, a symbol of her past life, and took a deep breath, determination kindling within her. The path to her childhood home was a winding one, the very earth beneath her feet recalling the imprint of her past. With every step, memories surged, gathering under the mango trees, the sweet scent of ripe fruit mingling with the laughter of friends long gone. Amara could almost hear the echoes of her own carefree giggles, but they felt distant, faded like old photographs left too long in the sun. Revisiting the village was not just a physical journey, it was an emotional pilgrimage back to a fractured sense of self. Her mother stood at the entrance, a figure of resilience wrapped in layers of grace. Time had etched lines onto her face, each one narrating a story of sacrifice and endurance. The embrace they shared was bittersweet, filled with silent understanding and unspoken words. Amara felt the weight of her mother's longing to fill the gaps left by her absence. They exchanged stories of the mundane and the magical that cloaked their lives, but Amara's heart ached to hear about Tunde. According to her mother, Tunde had battled the demons of disappointment ever since her departure. His spirit, once bright and ambitious, had dimmed. The once lively boy, who had dreamt of exploring the world beyond the horizons of the village, now spent his days drifting like a leaf caught in the undertow of sorrow. The weight of the past, pressed against Amara's chest, a tangible ache that stung with regret. How could she have turned her back on him? As her mother spoke, Amara's resolve crystallized. She could no longer linger in the shadows of guilt. As they reached the outskirts of the village, Amara felt the sharpness of her emotions clashing with the reality of her situation. Her heart raced furiously in her chest, and every nerve ending buzzed with a cocktail of anxiety and determination. She caught sight of Tunde, silhouetted against the backdrop of the setting sun. He appeared older, a trace of weariness decorating his once boyish features. She hesitated, her feet rooted to the ground, captivated by the memory of who he had been, who they had been together. But she knew this was her chance for redemption. With a deep inhale, she stepped forward. Each heartbeat was a reminder of time lost, a gentle nudge pushing her closer to the boy whose heart had once intertwined with hers. As she neared, she saw him. "Turn!" His eyes widening in disbelief. The moment hung in the air, a fragile silence enveloping them, as the world around faded into a blur. Would he recognize the woman standing before him as the girl he once loved? Would he even want to? Only time would tell. But for Amara, there was no more turning back. Amara watched as Tunde's gaze shifted, a fleeting storm of emotions passing across his face. The walls surrounding her heart felt impenetrable, her breath caught in the throes of hope, intertwined with dread. Each word she spoke emerged with hesitation, unsure if they would bridge the rift or deepen it. She knew the weight of absence, how it had carved an empty space in their lives, one that Tunde had filled with silence and dreams of understanding that had gone unrealized. In those early conversations, they walked gingerly over the terrain of their shared past. Tunde spoke of his experiences through uncertain words, his chin trembling as he relayed his triumphs in school, the friends he made, and the family gatherings he'd attended without her. Each anecdote, a reminder of moments that felt both distant and painfully close. Amara listened intently, her heart heavy with the knowledge of what she had missed. Every story was a piece of a puzzle that she desperately wished to fit together, yet it left her feeling like an intruder in a life she had hoped to belong to. "I always wondered why you left," Tunde finally whispered, the question hanging in the air like a fragile kite ready to be snatched by the wind. Amara's heart lurched as the vulnerability in his voice pierced through her chest. What could she say to explain the choices she made, the fears that had driven them? She searched for the right words, grappling with her shame and regret. When she spoke, it was more than a confession, it was a promise. "I was scared, Tunde. I thought leaving was the best thing for you at the time," she admitted, her voice thick with unshed tears. "But I was so wrong. I thought distance would heal my wounds, and I didn't realize it would only leave you with yours." The warmth of their connection began to thaw the ice between them. Tunde nodded slowly, and as he listened, Amara felt the cracks of his hesitation begin to deepen. He shared his anger, the countless nights he had spent grappling with questions, refusing to accept her absence as a valid reason for her choices. The hurt that had become synonymous with their relationship was now laid bare between them, an acknowledgement of the labyrinth they had navigated separately. As weeks turned to months, their conversations transformed. They ventured into laughter as they reminisced about childhood memories. Tunde found comfort in sharing his emerging interests, which ignited the memories of quiet afternoons spent coloring and reading together. Amara encouraged him to express himself, to articulate his dreams and fears, fostering a space filled with acceptance rather than judgment. Together, they began to build a new framework of trust, layer by layer, moment by moment. It was not an easy process. There were missteps and misunderstandings, but each setback became a lesson etched in their journey. Amara learned to listen more intently, to observe without imposing. Tunde, finding his voice, began to understand the complexities of his mother, the scars she bore, the burdens she carried, and the depths of her love. Slowly, the distance they had once known began to dissolve, replaced by shared experiences and fragile bridges of dialogue, woven together by the threads of rediscovered affection. As they embarked deeper into this healing journey, they realized that love could truly transcend the bounds of time and pain, stitching their hearts together with the vibrant threads of hope and resilience. In the heart of the village, life continued its rhythm, echoing the lessons learned through whispered conversations and stolen glances. Amara and Tunde, side by side, began to navigate the delicate tapestry of their renewed relationship, each thread woven with care and understanding. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue that accented Amara's smile as she watched Tunde play with the other children. Laughter floated through the air like a sweet melody, punctuated by the occasional call of a bird or the rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. Through their shared experiences, they forged a bond that was neither easily defined by the past nor limited by the shadows that once loomed over them. For Tunde, the scars of his childhood began to heal, not merely through the love his mother showered upon him, but in the quiet moments of vulnerability they shared. He saw in her eyes the reflection of his own pain and growth, and it was this mutual understanding that began to paint over the cracks of their previous disconnect. Amara, in her newfound maturity, recognized the power of presence. It was not enough to merely occupy the same space. It was essential to be fully engaged, to listen intently and respond with love. She made it a point to carve out time each day for Tunde, whether it was helping him with his homework, cooking together, or simply sharing tales from her childhood. Those tales were filled with both folly and wisdom, laughter and tears, and through them, Tunde began to see his mother in a new light, not as the flawed human she was, but as a resilient spirit embracing life's complexities. At times, the weight of their shared past would surface, like a tide, pulling at them with an intensity that threatened to drown their fragile connection. But instead of drowning, they learned to swim. They would sit beneath the ancient baobab tree that stood tall at the village's edge, its branches an umbrella of solace, as they spoke of their fears and hopes. With each conversation, they unburdened their hearts, allowing forgiveness to flow freely, like the water from a slowly melting glacier after a long winter. The village, too, bore witness to their transformation. Neighbors smiled knowingly as they exchanged glances, recognizing the blossoming love between mother and son. The ripple effect of their journey resonated throughout the community, inspiring others to confront their own strained relationships. If Amara and Tunde can mend what was broken, perhaps we too can find our way, they whispered, emboldened by the light that radiated from the once fractured family. As they walked through the village streets, hand in hand, Amara felt an unfamiliar but welcome warmth envelop her heart. True wealth did not lie in the physical, but in the intangible. Those moments of connection, the acts of kindness, and the simple yet profound understanding that they were not alone. No longer haunted by what had been, Amara and Tunde stepped boldly into a future filled with possibilities. Their journey a testament that love, when nurtured, could conquer even the deepest of wounds.